Hi everyone, thank you for coming out tonight. My name is Claire.
I'm Angelina.
And we are from two clubs here on campus, Aim High Association and Empower. And we're super excited that you all came tonight. We have a lovely evening planned with our guest speaker, Meg Anderson. Before we bring her up here, we just kind of wanted to introduce ourselves, welcome you all, because we're kind of mixing different groups here. So just a quick little recap of what Aim High is. It's a self-improvement, accountability, and goal-setting club here on campus. And we're open to all majors, and we just want to bring together like-minded people to achieve their goals.
So similarly, Empower is about empowering women through social development, networking, professional development. We provide a lot of resources for women to advance their career and social growth. And it's just overall a place to empower women and meet people from different backgrounds. And now we'll introduce Meg. I met Meg when I was a freshman, and now I'm a senior. And she introduced me to Empower, and she was always super welcoming and just a beautiful, bright light. So we'll let her get started.
Thank you. Thank you. It's so good to be back here. So I went to Pitt. I graduated in spring of 23. I founded Empower when I was here. And I was in the business school. I studied finance, but I am now recently, which I'll get into, sort of going full in entrepreneurship with a fitness-oriented business. So I'm going to talk a little bit tonight about my story, how I sort of made that pivot, and hopefully provide some inspiration and advice and guidance for people navigating their own purpose and path, especially when maybe you feel really called to something that's very different than the status quo or the path that you're currently on. So at the end of my first day at my first job out of college, I came home from that skyscraper towering over the Hudson River in New York City, shut the door to my shoebox apartment, kicked off my heels, called up my parents, and cried. Not because I was overwhelmed by this new life of mine in New York City, but because of a deep realization I had, a terrifying one. This wasn't just the start of another semester or another school year that would end in a few months. This was the start of the rest of my life. And deep down, I felt like it was a life I didn't even want. So how did I get here? Well, for most of my life, I thought I had the formula to success down to a science. I had the spreadsheets, the color-coded calendars, endless to-do lists. I had all 4 years of my college courses mapped out before I even stepped foot into Bruce Hall as a freshman. My formula was simple. I always looked far ahead to goals that I wanted to achieve, would work backwards to today, make a plan to get there, then simply check the boxes, collect the achievements, then move on to the next thing. Repeat, repeat, repeat. And for a long time, that approach worked. By my senior year here at Pitt, I had the finance major's dream job lined up with BlackRock in New York City. I was thrilled and very excited for this next chapter and very proud. Everyone told me, Meg, you have such a bright future and all your hard work has paid off. And I believed them. But here's the problem with formulas. They don't account for how you actually feel. You get so used to just chasing after the next thing that you never pause to stop and think if you're chasing after something you really want. You just keep running because that's what you've always done. So out of school and into the real world of New York City finance, I learned it was a whole new game. Succeeding in corporate America was nothing like succeeding in the classroom. It was a game that I didn't really enjoy and one that I wasn't very good at. I learned a lot of lessons the hard way. And I noticed early on that while my whole life I had been taught that what matters is how hard you work, how prepared you are for exams, how much you raise your hand in class, how many extracurriculars you join. In corporate America, it seemed like people were applauded for how busy they seemed to be, for bragging about how late they had stayed at the office last night, even if they didn't have any work to be done, for being the loudest in the room, even if they weren't really saying anything of value. And this really confused and frustrated me and just didn't feel like I was in the right place. At the same time, adjusting to life in New York City after being in Pittsburgh my whole life was brutal. I found multiple mice in my shower, got lost on the subway a handful of times, locked out of my apartment, and deeply missed my friends and family and home. I thought I had done what you were supposed to. I thought to be happy and successful, especially in something like finance, you were supposed to move to the big shiny city and get a big job. But I was miserable. And then came time for my first performance review. This was December, a few months after I started. And I got the worst feedback I had received in my entire life. Not because I wasn't smart or capable of doing the work, but because I didn't understand the rules of the corporate game yet. To top it off, on the same day I got home from work, my boyfriend at the time called and broke up with me over the phone. And as New York City winter was setting in, the city that at once had seemed so magical and full of promise felt dark, dreary, and not at all like home. I really wanted to quit, pack my bags, and get out of there, pretend it had never happened. And that's when it hit me. Planning ahead and always having these next milestones to look forward to wasn't just something that I used to succeed. It was something I used to cope, and it was a major part of my identity. But here I felt stuck, and there was no next thing to plan for to get me out of it. There was no next exam to study for. There was no next semester to plan my classes, no internship applications to fill out. So here I was in a job in a city I didn't really like, and I didn't know what to do. Because for the first time in my life, I couldn't just pick a date in the future, an achievement that I wanted, plan backwards, make a plan, check the boxes, because I didn't even know what I wanted. And so for the first time, I had to learn, instead of planning backwards, how to work forwards, one small step at a time. So I went home for the holidays, feeling down and defeated, and I saw two paths ahead of me. I could either spend every single day miserable, or I could make the most of the situation while I was in it and try and use the time at this job and in this city to figure out who I was and what I really wanted. Thankfully, that is the option I chose. I started by giving myself a simple challenge when I got back after the holidays. Try to find one good thing about my job every single day. That seemed nearly impossible at first, but over time, I started genuinely looking forward to things like sipping my morning coffee at my desk, laughing with my favorite coworkers, picking out outfits I really enjoyed, and also creating spreadsheets that I would color code with various shades of pink, which is my signature color. And it really worked. By my mid-year performance review, which was about 6 months later, my boss told me the team had noticed a total transformation of my performance. And by my end-year performance review, I had glowing feedback across the team and even earned a raise. So I felt like a high achiever once again. But I still felt in my heart that this work just wasn't what lit me up. And I did not want to fall back into that same trap of just chasing that next piece of feedback and chasing that next performance review. So I decided to start experimenting with what lit me up outside of work. I conquered fitness challenges like 75 Hard. I started getting into journaling and yoga and meditation and read countless self-help books. And what started as practices to find hobbies or even a distraction from the life that I didn't really love became practices that grounded me in who I was and grounded me in this crazy life I had in New York City. They gave me the time and the space to just spend time with myself, away from the judgments of others, the pressure of deadlines or grades, or the judgment of the outside world, to really get to know me at a deep level. And I think this was the first time in my life that I actually did that. I realized after countless workouts that I didn't just like exercise, I felt called to fitness. And so I decided to get my NASM certification on the side and started training my first client online after work. I noticed quickly that no matter how long or stressful or miserable a day at the office might have been for me, I always left those sessions with her feeling on top of the world. So I knew I was onto something. But I also felt that my calling was broader than fitness. I love it, but I also felt passionate about events hosting, women's empowerment, community building, and yes, the color pink. So in November of 2024, just over a year after being in New York City, I launched Pink and Powerful, which is my now business. But when it started, it was just an Instagram handle, a logo, and this idea of bringing women together in post-grad life to empower each other and to help navigate this difficult transition. I pulled a lot of inspiration from Empower, which I founded here at Pitt. At the same time, I was looking for other ways to improve my situation in New York City. I applied for other jobs. I even applied to go back to school. I talked to my boss about switching teams within the firm. which I'm not sure if that's a suggested practice, but I did it. And eventually I received a job offer back here in Pittsburgh that felt like the best next step. I was ready to come home. I will be forever grateful for those 2 years I spent at BlackRock in New York City, for the lessons I learned, the amount of challenges that I learned I could overcome, the people it brought into my life, including my now boyfriend, Kyle. And because it was out of that season of difficulty that I was forced to really take a step back and evaluate who I was and what I wanted. And it's where Pink and Powerful came to be. So between the job at BlackRock and the job back here in Pittsburgh, I had 6 weeks off. That was this past summer. And I knew I wanted to spend the time making progress towards these dreams I had of fitness coaching and Pink and Powerful, but I didn't want to fall back into that trap of having another formula or rigid plan. So I gave myself another simple challenge. Just take one aligned action step a day in the general direction of getting closer to these goals. So there were no rules other than I had to do at least one thing every day those 6 weeks. So some days it was posting fitness content on Instagram, which I was terrified to do, and I now do all the time. So it really got me more comfortable with that. Some days it was reaching out to other people in the fitness industry, like gym owners who I could collaborate to host events. Others, it was reaching out to women who I thought might be interested in Pink and Powerful. And those 6 weeks changed me. I was the happiest, felt the most alive, and most in line with who I'm meant to be that I had in my entire life. And out of that season, on a beach in Portugal, after a nice surf sesh, came the idea for 77 Aligned, which is my now group coaching program based on that same principle of encouraging women to take action steps each day, even if they're very small, towards achieving their biggest goals. But unfortunately, the summer had to come to an end. And this past August, I had to start the corporate job in Pittsburgh. And on paper, that seemed like the right next step. It was a very safe and prestigious role, the kind of job that a lot of people nodded approvingly at. But after 6 weeks of doing what I was most passionate about every single day, the contrast was unbearable. It was 5 days a week in the office, and I felt myself living inauthentically again, surrounded by people who don't understand my obsessions with things like bone broth and chia seeds and yoga, and doing work that just didn't light me up the same way. So just 6 weeks into that job, this past September, I quit to go all in on my dreams and figure out a way to really be passionate about my career. Now, I want to make something very clear. My message to you all is not that everyone needs to quit the traditional path and start a business, and especially not starting a business or going all in on it until you have proof of concept. I had been doing Pink and Powerful for almost a year by the time I quit. I'd been fitness coaching since college, and I actually met with an entrepreneur in residence here at Pitt's very own Big Idea Center who specializes in talking to young people about their ideas for businesses, and she confirmed that I'm on the right path. My business model also doesn't require major upfront investment since it's mostly virtual coaching or hosting events. So the message isn't you have to quit your job. The idea is you should try to live in alignment with who you are, and that looks different for everyone. For some people, that might be trying to live in a different part of the world for a period of time. It might be putting yourself out there to make new friends or start a new hobby. It might be switching your major or adding on a minor. And it could be tackling starting a business in your free time. It doesn't matter so much what you do. What matters is that it's something that feels right to who you are, as opposed to just living for the approval of the world and doing the path that you think you're supposed to do because maybe that's what you were doing before or what people told you you're supposed to do. And I'll be candid, I'm new to this. September 15th is not that long ago. And I don't know if this is what I'm going to still be doing in 5 years. I don't know how successful this business will be. I think it's on a good trajectory, but I may evolve and change. The world's going to change. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. But I can tell you that I'm confident that this was the right decision to at least explore this path, or else I would have spent my entire life wondering. And I have been waking up these past several weeks feeling the most excited to do work every day than I have in my entire life. I don't mind working weekends or spending late nights thinking about this because it's what I really love to do. Now, I know so many young people around your age and through their 20s and 30s that feel the same way that I once did and often still do, which is scared, uncertain about your path, maybe even stuck with where you're at. And I want you to hear this. You are not alone. It's very normal to feel that way. You are not behind, And you shouldn't feel bad for feeling that way. In fact, I would say that feeling is actually a good thing. That's your body's intuition telling you that maybe the situation you're in is a little bit off. And many people, they go their entire life and ignore that feeling. But I would encourage you to lean into it, to listen to it, and try to understand what it is that it's telling you. Noticing that discomfort is actually the first necessary step towards discovering what truly does excite you and starting to take steps towards that life that you really want. So I know some of you might be sitting there thinking that sounds all well and good, but you have no idea where to start, or you have no idea what your dreams and your passions even are. But fortunately, I plan for that. And I have a framework that has been super helpful in my life that I'd like to share with you to help you, called DARE. Dare to discover, act, reflect, and evolve. DARE is not a plan. It certainly isn't a formula. It's a practice. It's a way of living that encourages looking inward, self-reflection, taking small steps even when you don't know where it's going to go or even when you're scared, and taking those big leaps in life when the timing calls for it. So first, discovery. Discovery is all about looking inward, asking yourself questions like, what was I naturally like as a little kid? What activities can you get lost for the flow state for hours in? And when you look back at your life, did you feel the most happy and at peace? For me, self-discovery started by noticing themes that had been present in my life all along, even ones I hadn't noticed before. For example, when I was a little girl, I liked to dress up in this pink princess fairy outfit, and I'd run around outside in the woods and pretend I was talking to witches and fairies and unicorns, even when it wasn't Halloween. I would do it anytime. And looking back fondly on that memory just reminded me how much I've always been drawn to magic, expressing myself boldly, and yes, the color pink. And these are all things that have become fundamental parts of my brand, Pink and Powerful. And it works really well for me because it's authentic to who I am. I don't have to try very hard because it's already what I love to do. So self-discovery isn't about looking at what you like to do. It's analyzing who you already are. Next, action. There are two big things people tend to get wrong about action. The first, like I used to think, is that they need to have all of the steps planned out before they start. In reality, when you take one step, that will often reveal the second next step, and that will reveal the third, and so on. If you wait until you have it all planned out, chances are you'll either never start or that plan's going to change anyway. And second, people think they need to wait to act when they feel ready. But again, if you wait until you feel ready to try something new, there's a good chance you will be waiting your whole life. We are inherently scared of trying new things as humans because we try to protect ourselves by sticking to our comfort zones. So you have to start acting even when you're scared, and that action builds confidence. When I launched Pink and Powerful, as I mentioned, I didn't have a business plan. I had an idea, I had a passion, I had an Instagram handle, but those small steps built momentum. They gave me a little bit more clarity in what I wanted and what resonated with people. And trust me, not everything you try will work. I have tried to host events that had 0 signups. I've launched my fitness coaching offerings that had 0 interest. But I reframe those moments not as failures, but as information. It helped make me even better the next time I launched an event. It taught me what people really do want in a fitness coach. And so I encourage you when you're trying things in life, in whatever arena it is, it's trying to make new friends or dating or studying. When something doesn't work out, don't view it as failing. It's trial and error, it's experimentation. That's kind of what our whole life is you try things and sometimes they don't work and you can't always take it personally. You just have to keep going and you will get better as time goes on. Action will teach you what no amount of planning ever could. A necessary byproduct of action should always be reflection. So after you do try something, you go to an event, you have a conversation with someone, think about how it made you feel for real. Don't be fake with yourself. Ask yourself things like, did I leave that situation feeling inspired or exhausted? Did the conversation with that friend light me up or make me feel bad about myself? Did I actually like going to that party or did I just think I should like going to it? Reflection forces you to slow down and to make sure that as you're chasing these goals, you're still chasing things that you want. I spent a long time sort of hiding from reflection and just kind of convincing myself I liked finance and I would love New York City. And then once I got there, I had to do a lot of the reflecting. But I encourage you to just implement this every time you try something. And finally, evolve. These are those giant life changes. So this doesn't necessarily happen very often. These are things like deciding you're going to move to a new city for a while or study abroad for a semester. Something like switching your major or quitting the safe path to start a business or even starting something on the side. Evolution requires you in life to dive into uncertainty, to give up the comfort of having a plan and knowing exactly what your life's going to look like in a few months or a few years in order to follow your heart. It requires a very deep sense of self-trust over needing the approval of others, because chances are other people might not understand it when you want to evolve, when you want to do these things. So you have to really know for yourself that it's the right move. And this can be scary. All four of these can be. But if you do dare to discover, act, reflect, and evolve, you won't just change your life path, you'll change who you are and the type of person that you are. You'll become the type of person that knows yourself so well and has such confidence that you're not afraid to jump into the unknown. You're not afraid to go after the things you really want. You become the type of person that can pivot when situations change, that can deal with uncertainty, and it allows you to start building a life that you really love. So maybe you can't plan your whole life or even the next 5 years. I would argue as a former, lover of planning that maybe you shouldn't. But what you can do is dare to discover, act, reflect, and evolve. And commit to taking one small action step a day, starting today, in the general direction of these big dreams of yours. It doesn't have to be big, it can be small. Having one conversation with someone who's doing something you find interesting, putting yourself out there, raising your hand in a class when you're a little bit scared to do it. And pretty soon, these steps will build momentum, and you'll be building the life of your dreams, not the life of other people's dreams. And many years from now, you'll be able to look behind you and see the butterfly effect, how one small step can transform everything. Thank you. Okay, is that done? All right.